Hi, everyone. I am Dee. Welcome to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. I have another amazing guest with me today. This is Beth. Beth, thank you for joining us today. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm so excited about this conversation today and seeing where it takes us. Will you share with us today what it is you do?
I think it's best to start in 2014. For the second time in my life, I was having panic attacks, and I was having them every day. And I was going through traditional Western medicine, and I wasn't getting the relief that I needed. And I turned to an energy medicine healer at that time. And it was finally when I started to see the relief because she could work with me on levels spiritually, emotionally, and she started working on stories that were trapped in my body and
Mm.
toxins that were trapped in my body. And this was all done remotely. She was in Virginia. I was living at that time in Canada. And and it made me want to start doing the work myself. So I went back to school first for psychotherapy. And then when I moved back to New Jersey, I started the classes to do energy medicine healing on my own. And I studied specifically body intuitive, but I also have taken Reiki. I became a yoga instructor. And now I do body intuitive, which is a combination of Eastern and Western medicine. So it uses all of the Eastern Chinese medicine, and then it combines the Western anatomy and immune system and the brain, the nervous system, the hormone system and organs. And then also we combine in things like the chakra system, and maybe archetypes, if you've heard of archetypes, and we do past lives. And so it's really like a multi-layer platform that I get to work from. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it's very well integrated and it's such a beautiful thing. And I love that. I love the holistic approach to health because our bodies have a beautiful and innate ability to heal themselves. And so many people don't realize that. And so they look to outside sources. So do you find that you attract more people to you that are already kind of on that holistic path, or do you also get people who are more skeptical and more integrated into the Western medicine way of things?
That's a great question. It's interesting. I get a lot of people that are frustrated with Western medicine that have been going through maybe even cancer treatments. I have some cancer patients that have been going through, things like lupus diagnosis and autoimmune diagnosis, and they're on medicines and they don't know why this is happening. And what we do with body intuitive is we get to like the root cause. So we get to the underlying like issues. So it was really interesting. I had one of my clients that came to me. She has she has a lupus, she has autoimmune, she's got digestive issues. And one of the first questions that I asked her was once I tune in, so I tune in using like a mindfulness exercise. And once I tuned in, I asked her, I was like, we've got mold here. This is like a mold issue for you. And I don't even think, she knew this. And I said, do you
Mm.
recall being exposed to mold? And she's like, oh yeah, I worked in a moldy basement for 10 years.
Oh
And
my
I was
God.
like, yeah, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I said. So we've been, and I'm still working with her. So we're peeling back, it's layers of this mold exposure that is, she's got other issues, but this is like what her major issue is this mold exposure. So we've been trying to peel back these layers.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And how long have you been working with her? Just out of
So
curiosity.
I Yeah, no, I've been working with her about like 6 months maybe.
Okay, and have
And
you seen
so
lots of improvement in her since you've been, or has she seen more improvement in herself? I guess would be the better question to ask.
Yeah, so of course with healing, it's not linear, right? So she'll
Right.
see the 3 steps forward and the 1 step back, and then we'll work on her immune system this time, and then her digestion might slip back. So we'll work on her digestion, and then, something else might slip back. So it's that dance.
Yeah.
But we're doing a lot of something called epigenetic work with her, which is okay, so good. You're
But thanks
familiar.
to
So
Bruce
it's
Lipton and
that's
Greg Braden,
right.
I know a little bit about that
Yeah,
also.
they're amazing, right?
Yes.
So we have this kind of, I like to describe it as like this layer on top of our genes, which is kind of like an environmental layer. So it's affected by trauma, it's affected by toxins, it's affected by illness that can literally change these epigenetic markers. And so we've been working on changing these markers for her. And she's got a lot of these changes that we've been chipping away at. So for her in particular, she's got a lower bandwidth. So I work on something like from a scale of 1 to 10, I establish how much she can take in a session.
Mhm.
And because she's also got Lyme's and she's got Epstein-Barr and she's got a few other things, her bandwidth is lower. So we can only do maybe 2 or 3 epigenetic genes along with some Chinese medicine, some chakras at a time. So we kind of have to chip away very slowly with a lower bandwidth.
Okay, so it's very individual then. So like if you have 5 people that you're taking care of in any one given stretch of time, and each of them are on a different bandwidth. So one person may show significant improvement a lot quicker than someone else, but that's not because it can't happen. It's just their own personal ability to allow. And that's kind of how I think of it, is allowing those changes to happen, because mindset is huge.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I have another client with a higher bandwidth, and we've been working with both. Um, she has sleep issues and anxiety issues. And because I suffered with anxiety, I'm always excited to work with
Right.
anxiety. Um, and so she's got a lot of epigenetics around anxiety. And it was interesting because I said to her one day, I said, we were dealing with sleep at the time. And I said, do you have, is there one child that you particularly worry about? Because I feel like there is like this super fear around one of your children and it's affecting your sleep. And she
Right.
said, oh yeah, my youngest son has an EpiPen. He had he went into anaphylactic shock a couple years ago, and I can't sleep if he leaves the house, I can't like function.
Oh, bless her
So
heart.
we immediately, yeah, yeah. And so we immediately were able to start, not only were we working epigenetically, we're working with some of her chakras. And then we were working with even things like getting her like a list of things in place that she can do. What can she do for herself that will make her feel confident? Things like calling on her support team, her angels, her guides,
Right.
um, you know, putting him in a bubble, things like that she can do that really can make her feel more grounded. And we work on grounding exercises for her. And we, also work on that root chakra a lot to get her a sense of safety and security.
Mhm. Yeah. And do you talk about
But
fear? Because you haven't actually said, well, I mean, you said she's kind of afraid. I don't know if you use the word afraid, but at any rate, there is a fear there. So do you
there is a
discuss
fear.
that aspect of it with your clients? Because I know that fear will suppress the immune system, and it draws to us what we're afraid of, because we keep saying we don't want it, but we're actually kind of calling it to us by naming it like that all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, we talk about fear immensely. And I don't want to shift gears too quickly on you, but I do have a different fear story I want to tell, if
Yeah.
is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Great
okay.
timing.
So I I in Chinese medicine, the kidneys are associated with fear. And one of my clients came to me with polycystic kidneys. And we actually went back 3 generations for her, to like her mother's side, to a great great grandmother that had fear, and we traced it epigenetically to fear around like a war story. And it was somewhere in like the late like mid 1850s 1860s, to a great great grandparent. And she was able to, we then Googled it after we, intuitively traced it back to a fear story for this great grandparent, which is where her issues were coming from. We were then able to Google it and found a war. It was the Italian Independence War. So it was just like so fascinating that we could find it right to that time frame. And she was able to like try and release some of the fear. Now she was also experiencing fear, so it was passed down through all of these generations. And yes, the other client we were just talking about, we do talk about fear, and there is the same thing. There's lineage of fear passed down from her grandmother to her mother to her. And
Yeah.
we're clearing that as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely so powerful because I was just discussing with a good friend of mine the other day who told me, and she was a little bit fearful about telling me this past life story because a lot of people don't believe in it, so they haven't received the information well when she shared it. But I'm super open to stuff like that, and I know I have past lives as well. So she shared this story with me about how she lived as a peasant in a different life before this one, like probably hundreds of years ago. And
Yeah.
he actually saw her own death. And she was,
Mhm.
because she was a peasant, and there was this, they were working the land, but the land wasn't fertile and they couldn't get anything to grow. So she died of starvation and she saw her own death. So even in this lifetime, she's very protective around food. Like she loves food, which she's not a big woman. A lot of times when we love food, we tend to get a little heavier, but that's not been the case with her at any rate. But she hoards it. Like she always makes sure she has food for, like, in case of an
Mhm.
emergency and stuff like that. But that's from another lifetime, like hundreds of years ago. So
Absolutely.
the fear
Yeah.
is so strong, and it's amazing how it affects us even through lifetimes like that and generations. It's absolutely incredible. And for you to be able to trace it back and find it like that, so you can help her to, just eliminate that fear, and that's amazing. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. It's really fun. And sometimes we just need to bring attention to the story to release it. But a lot of times I'll use like an acupressure point combination, or I'll use acupressure points, or we'll use some kind of breathing techniques, maybe a shamanic breathing technique. And we'll use different things to help clear it out of the body as well.
Yeah.
But sometimes just telling the body, let go of this, just even helps as well.
Yeah, and I was like they say thing. There's so
They,
much
I
information
know.
out there, but I've heard it said so many times that when we take care of an issue like this, it clears it 5 generations back and 5 generations forward. Is that something that you find to be true in your work?
Generally speaking, for me, I need to specifically tune into those generations for it to clear. So we have to, if I work on it on my client, I can clear it, but I have to ask if I can clear it for, let's say, her mother, or for if she had a child. We'd have to ask if we can clear it for that. I can't do it without asking first. So it's kind of a little more specific.
Okay. And I know everyone right now is thinking, who are you asking? So I'm going to go ahead and ask that question for everyone so that you can answer it.
So that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I asked they, no, I'm just kidding. I, I tune into,
That
I
was
tune
awesome.
into spirit. Yeah, I tune into spirit when I connect, and I usually start with a little when I say I do mindfulness when I start, and then I ask spirit. So, whatever word you choose to use for that, divine. Some people use Mother Earth, some people use God. Um, I say spirit. That's where I like to connect
Yeah.
and get my infinite wisdom.
Yeah.
And
That's,
that's also where I get when I'm getting my information and the stories that come up. That's what I would say is through spirit, through
uh,
connection.
that's amazing. So now there's so many different modalities that you have integrated into this. So could you explain a little bit more about how that all works together?
Yeah. So I have a million charts. So I've taken a lot of classes, and I have all these charts that kind of add up, and I use them to muscle test. So when I tune in using mindfulness, I do at my prayer silently, and then I start as a surrogate because I do my sessions virtually. So I start as a surrogate to do muscle testing. And let me just say that I'm very into mindfulness. It's been something that's helped me with my anxiety very much. So I'm going to do a shameless plug here and say I do have a free mindfulness exercise, like it's a guided meditation on my website, if anybody wants to check that out. Because I mean, it's about 10 minutes long, but I always think that you can't get enough mindfulness. So,
Yeah, I agree.
um, yeah,
And we'll
it's
link your
important.
website in the description box below the video. So, um,
Oh, great. Thank
and
you.
you can tell us at the end of the episode exactly where to go, and we'll get everybody over there that will go.
Oh,
Yes, mindfulness. I'm
okay.
all about it.
Thank you. Mindfulness. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so when I start with that, I get to tune into what's going on, and I become a surrogate for my client. And it's really and I say my prayer to connect to spirit, but it's interesting because sometimes I'll get, like, one time with my client, I started yawning, and I was like, listen, I'm not tired, but I can't stop yawning. I said, I feel bone tired. And she goes, oh my God, you're creeping me out. I'm bone tired. I've been bone tired for like a week. I'm like,
wow.
okay, so we have to release this. And usually I get information as soon as I do the mindfulness exercise. I get neck pain, I get joint pain, I get emotions. One time I got guilt. I'm like, okay, so I'm getting Catholic guilt. And the woman says to me, yeah, I was Catholic. Yeah, I had some guilt. And I said, we're dealing with like a relationship. And I said, we'll figure it out. And she's like, no, I can't think of anything. I was like, oh, it's during your teenage years. And she's like, no, I can't think of anything. And I said, okay. And I said, we don't need to, this is what it is, and we'll just move on. And then we finished our session, and about 2 hours later, she emails me like a 2-page long email about all this Catholic guilt and this relationship she had with inappropriate relationship, like with a teacher kind of a thing in high
Yeah,
school. And it was like she had totally blocked it out.
yeah.
And she went on a walk after our session, and it all like flooded
Flooded
back.
back. Yeah,
So yeah. And so like I get all kinds of information just from tuning in. And then when I muscle test, I have like a summary sheet. So I can say, am I going to be in past lives? Am I going to be in chakras? Am I going to be in the nervous system? And sometimes the information just kind of pops in my head, but mostly I'm going to muscle test and kind of pinpoint where I'm going on my charts. And a lot of times it starts with, as I progress in working more and more, because I've been doing this about 4 years now. I start to get a lot of the stories first, and then I have to back up and say, where are we working in the body? And is it going to be Chinese medicine? Because Chinese medicine comes up a lot. You know, we've got 5 elements, we've got chi types, we've got 5 stages, we've got meridians, all the different meridians, which hold a lot of information about what's going on in the body. And they all get disrupted with these different stories.
Yeah, I can see where they would. I know mine have. I've had some stories I've had to work through, let me tell you. So it's pretty
Yeah,
interesting. So do you do this
yeah.
muscle testing? I know a lot of people aren't really even familiar with what that is. So if you could explain a little bit about how that works, and do you do it over Zoom so that you can see the other person while you're doing it, or
Yeah,
some
I
kind
do
of
it over
video
Zoom.
platform?
Yeah, I do most of my clients over Zoom, but I do some on the phone. So it works either way. Normally muscle testing is using the arm like this, but I do a little ring thing where I do yes and no. And it works out, pretty simply. Once you learn it, muscle testing is it becomes pretty natural. And it just is a really simple yes or no. Am I going to chakras? Yes. And then what chakra? Root, sacral, solar plexus, heart. And then we go right to the heart. But I don't usually do it on camera. I usually have it in my hands. So I tell people, if you want to see, let me know. Um, and then I can always show them, but most people just go with the flow.
Hmm. And what's the
Yeah.
the response from your clients, especially if they've been skeptical clients to this muscle testing? Are they pretty kind of blown away by it?
Yes, most of them are blown away. They're blown away that these stories can come out. I remember working on anxiety with a client, and I was like, we were working in the brain, and there's, different areas like the amygdala that was kind of overfiring. And I said, I know this sounds strange, but did your dog did we have anything like when you were a teenager you get hit by a car, or did you lose a dog when you were like 12 or 13? And her eyes just got wide, and I was like, because I usually get an age range, and then we kind of work from there when I get the stories. And yeah, she's like, but I didn't think I was I didn't even think I was upset by that. I was like, well, you might not have been, but your body was like upset
Right.
because it's telling me, I can't make that up. I wouldn't have known. Your body's telling me. So she just was, yeah, just people are blown away by the stories that I can come up with, because some of them are so good. People are great at repressing their emotions.
Oh
So
yeah.
they think, my house burned down. It wasn't a big deal. Hey, guess what? It was a big deal. You know, this is what happened. It was a big deal.
Yeah. It's so interesting how we can tell ourselves that it's not affecting us, but our body's telling us a whole different story. That's so
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. And a lot of those go back to childhood. Some things we don't realize because even some of the things we don't remember, right? But I had a girl walk up, and I say girl because, she was probably 30. And
I'm in
um,
that same boat with you, sister.
and I was doing a health fair, and like a wellness holistic fair. And I said, she said, I'm interested in working with you. She had lost her dad. And I was like, and I said, do you have something that happened to you when you were like in like 5 or 6, 7 years old? And it's funny because I always say I get an age range, but whenever I guess, like if I say 6 years old, it's always like 7. And the person's like, no, but when I was 7, this happened. So I try and keep it a little more general, and
Right.
and so I say, 5, 6, 7 years old. And she said, yeah, in first grade, and she wouldn't even tell me the story. I had a very embarrassing story in first grade. And I said, it's affecting you. And she booked on the spot. She's like,
Wow.
okay,
Wow,
let's book
that's
right now.
amazing.
Yeah.
From that long ago. Isn't that incredible how we hold on to these stories like that? Because you would think that
Yeah.
something that happened when you were that young, that when you're 30 something, that it wouldn't
Yeah.
be, that I mean, you think about it and you'd be like, yeah, one time when I was in first grade or whatever, ha ha ha, this stupid thing happened. But to hold on
Yeah.
to it like that, like it's affecting your day today, 30 years
Exactly.
later, that is just mind blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is mind blowing. And I tend to get, with body intuitive in general, not everybody I don't think goes back as far as I do, but I tend to get a lot of clearing from young ages. Some people remember and some people don't, but it does tend to come up with me a lot.
Okay, and so for people who are thinking, does it work when you don't really know exactly what happened because there's not an active memory there? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so the body knows, right? The body knows what's been going on and what it's been holding on to. And once we can draw attention to it, the person can generally tune into the emotion because even if we're calling up a story, let's say, let's say it's fear, because fear is a great one to use. So it's something that might come up a lot is like a first, I shouldn't say a lot, but has come up frequently is like the first time a parent has left you alone overnight and that fear that you're abandoned or you're never going to see them again or this for the people I deal with, they tend to be anxious brain, they tend to be nervous, they tend to be sensitive. And so this comes up, some form of this comes up. And that it's not just that issue or that one event, but it becomes a theme. And that's how we can work on it is like, okay, so this might have happened, but can you recall something similar happening later on with that same theme, with that same fear that we can then connect in that emotion and then we can work on clearing it.
Yeah. So I know that there are tons of people out there who have been diagnosed with autoimmune disorders. And I'd like to have you speak into this specifically because I actually have a friend in another state who has been posting quite a bit lately about her autoimmune disorder and how, it really kind of makes her feel worthless because she does have a child that she takes care of that, her son. So what do you find is the common thread through autoimmune disorders? And what kind of hope, I guess is a good word, could you give people who have been diagnosed with them?
Yeah. So my answer from what I've seen is that autoimmune, and I don't say this lightly. So please, understand I don't say this lightly, but autoimmune has a lot to do with upbringing as a child. I've seen some neglect. I've seen some abuse. I've seen, not harsh abuse, but a mom that might have worked, 9 to 6, might have been a single mom trying to take care of 4 kids, um, on, never having enough money, not, barely putting food on the table, like, might have tried to give her best, was obviously doing her best, but was just not enough for the kids. And if we're talking about, sensitive souls, then they this became, a problem for them. And like I said, I've also seen it be something like a toxin. It could be something like mold.
Mhm.
It could be something like that as well. I don't want to rule that out. But I think we have a dog here. I think doing some uncovering of some old stories and where they can be trapped it can be helpful. And looking back, I know it's hard to look back and we want to always try and look forward, but dealing with some emotions that like might have been repressed and we might not even realize we had. And if we think we had a perfect happy childhood, then maybe there is something else. Maybe it is toxins, and maybe it is mold or water or other things that could be playing a role in it, because autoimmune is very prevalent right now. And a lot of it, we also have to tie back into the gut and check on what's going on with the gut, because I think there's also a connection there. The gut is very important for what's happening.
It is. I feel that it is also because I mean, like everything is kind of starts and finishes there, right? In that
Right,
digestive tract. So
exactly.
it's a very, very important part of our anatomy, and it does house a lot of things through there. So
Yeah.
when I'm listening to you talk about childhood, it sounds like maybe, especially with the mom who's doing her best, and it's not actually an abusive situation, but there's just uh, a scenario of lack in the house, not enough money, not enough time, not enough, not enough, not enough. That maybe that's kind of a fear-based thing, because that's what it sounds like, a fear of not being safe and secure. Would that be accurate to say?
Yeah, that was a great summary. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. That fear base is definitely an issue, and probably a theme in a lot of autoimmune lives. And also, to take it a step further, feel not being safe in the world, and not being necessarily wanted or worthy
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah. One of the things that I've said to a few people here lately is you get to take up space in this world. One
Yes.
person, the next person is not more important than you. You're not more important than them, but they're not more important than you. You get to take up space. You get to do that,
Yes.
and it's just so amazing to me how many people feel like they don't get to take up space in this world, or like they're pushing someone else out if they do take up space. And it's
Yeah.
just like my heart just
It's
goes like I
so
just want to
important.
hug them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple of clients where I have them now, I have faith that they listen to me. So I have them with sticky notes on the mirrors and on their computers that say, I am a divine being. I am perfect in divine light. So they know they are just as worthy as the next person.
Yeah.
They are also divine. Um, and
It's
they are they're already perfect in divine's eyes, and they need to be living as if they're perfect.
yeah. Yeah, I always like to say you are enough exactly as you are right now with your bed head and
Yeah.
your raggedy clothes on. You are enough exactly as you are, no matter how, if you're sitting there with your nails all done and your hair perfectly and makeup, because some women are so good at that. I am not that girl. But some women
No,
are
me
so good
neither.
at that, and you're enough right there yourself, like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you're wearing, how you look, how well your hair's done, or how messy it is, does not define your worthiness and your enoughness in this life. And it's such an important
Yeah.
message for people to hear and understand and take on, so
Yeah. Yeah, another thing that I see a lot, not necessarily with autoimmune, but with maybe gut issues, and can be with autoimmune as well, is grief. Grief is a big thing that I see that gets trapped in the body and manifests maybe even as people don't know why they don't feel like themselves. Why don't I feel like myself? Why do I have no energy? I don't want to exercise. I don't want to walk. I don't want to find joy. Like, I don't care about going out. I don't care about, I get my kids to school, I get my job done, but that's all I can do. And a lot of times it's, trapped grief. It's a lot of times it's like grief that gets trapped in the body. I cared for an elderly parent for 5 years. Now I don't know what to do with myself. Once the parent passes, or I cared for my husband for 10 years and now he passed and I'm stuck. So grief is another thing that can play a role in people just not, maybe autoimmune, but maybe just not feeling like their best selves.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guilt associated with grief sometimes
And
too.
a lot of guilt. Yes,
Because people are like,
absolutely.
I don't feel like they did enough. They weren't able to be there when the person actually crossed over, or
Oh, yeah.
they had an argument with that person right before they crossed over, or whatever the case may be. And that just exacerbates that. Grief is hard enough by itself. But then when you put a
Yeah.
big old shovel full or two of guilt on top of that, it's definitely
Yeah.
something that needs to be addressed, and holding that kind of thing in your body is really,
Yeah.
that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's true. And, sometimes it's simple. Like, I had a client where I said, "Do you see balloons a lot?" I said, "I think your mom is showing me balloons." And she said, "I saw balloons at the doctor's office yesterday." I'm like, "Well, that was your mom." It can be very simple.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be really simple. Like, that was your mom. The
right.
Whatever you see can be simple, and just ask for a sign
Yeah.
and where you want it to be.
Yeah, it's so important, for people to get that communication and be open to it. Because I believe that a lot of people ask for it and they get it, but they're so distracted by things and they explain it away and they don't allow themselves to receive that message. And that's, being asking, when you ask for the sign, ask to also be, to allow yourself to receive it. That's, I feel, is hugely important, because, and people don't always show up in the way you think they're going to. Like that lady's mom shows up as balloons, and somebody else's mom may show up as a butterfly or a cardinal, or you know uh my dad showed up to my grandma as a frog, because he was all,
Awesome.
one of his favorite sayings was, finer than frog hair split three ways, if I don't get no better before dark. He nicknamed my oldest grandson JJ Frog, and he was always, just, and my dad was a big goofball. So, and he would play tricks and stuff on people. And so my grandma was sitting on her swing on her front porch, and this tree frog jumped on her. And she told me, and it would happen every time she would go outside, a tree frog would jump on her. And I told him, like, Grandma, that's dad. He's a prankster. He
Yeah.
always said the frog thing, and I said, that's dad. Now, he doesn't show up to me that way. He shows up to me completely differently, but to his mom, he showed up as a frog. So we just have to be open to receiving that message when it comes, because it can look like anything, a smell,
Yeah.
you know, a memory, a song
Yeah.
on the radio, a favorite show of theirs comes on TV, just out of the blue, you turn it on and that's the show that's on. That's not a coincidence.
No,
Just
absolutely.
accept
I
that
re-
message.
yeah, I remember looking for cardinals and wanting to see a cardinal as a sign that, just a sign that I was being watched over. And I wasn't getting it, and I wasn't getting it, and I was getting frustrated. And I opened Facebook or some social media, and there was a cardinal like posting. Somebody posted it. I was like, I'm going to take that because I needed a cardinal and
Yes.
it might not have been the way I wanted to see it, but I'm going to take it.
Yeah, and
It didn't matter.
absolutely. And that's how it
Yeah.
happened. It could be the most, and if we're and but you could have easily explained that away, but instead you were like, I see you, and you
I see.
accepted that
Yeah.
message. And that's the beautiful piece of it. And the great thing and the cool thing to me that happens when you start allowing yourself to receive that message is you get more of them. You get more of
Yes,
them.
absolutely.
It's really, really beautiful. So I think this is just so amazing what you do and helping people get this, you know, gunk cleared out of themselves
Yeah.
so that they can feel better, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually as well, because it's all connected.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
it's absolutely amazing. Do you have a favorite story about your own journey with this kind of work that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have to pick one. Um, I was working with, my mentor was working on me, and she was working on my anxiety, epigenetics. And she went back, it was the same thing. It was going back to my grandmother, my dad's side, and she tuned into her parents, so my great grandparents fighting. And my grandmother used to hide at night and eat candy. And she tuned into this story and she cleared some epigenetics around it. And I literally felt my anxiety reduce. Like it felt like a turning point in my anxiety, and I literally was able to decrease my anxiety medicine after that session. Like I had a few sessions, but this was, I feel like, the pivotal session where I was able to go down on my anxiety medicine.
That's amazing. And just
Which,
from a past memory that you didn't even know, really. Did you know
yeah,
that memory, or
no, no,
it was
no.
just still stored generations later in your body?
Yeah, yep, it was stored somewhere in my nervous system, somewhere in my brain,
That's inc-
passed down. Yeah, it was
that's
pretty cool.
that's absolutely incredible. And see, now to me, this is just affirmation that past lives do happen because I mean, how could it be? How else would you explain it? You know, that it's passed down through generations like that. I mean, I know that
Well, the
wasn't,
bottom floor, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's incredible. I'm so amazed by all this. I mean, I love it. Like it doesn't surprise me. And I absolutely love this kind of work. I mean, it's just right up my alley. I believe in it so
Thank you.
much. I've experienced it. I've helped other people experience it also. And it's incredible. And I love that it doesn't matter. Distance doesn't matter. Like you said, you work with clients that are in other states away from you, and distance
Yeah.
doesn't
Oh,
have
yeah.
anything to do with it. It's
Oh,
incredible.
no, not at all. Yeah.
So is there any last bits of information you would like to share with the listeners today?
Um, no, I feel like, yeah, no, I feel pretty good. I think we covered a lot. I, I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to be here and get to talk to you about all this exciting stuff. And hopefully, hopefully somebody will be, learning and open to hearing new things.
Yeah, absolutely. And you work with skeptics as well as people who embrace this. So if anybody's
Yeah. And
interested, tell them how to get in
I'm
contact
just,
with you.
yeah, well, I hope they take away that they are divine. I
Yes.
really hope that each person takes that. That's most important to me, and they are perfect as they are, exactly. Even if they feel sick and tired, they are still perfectly divine. So they can get in touch with me. My website is Beth Aitken, AITKEN, .com. And that mindfulness exercise, it says right on there, it should say free meditation. They can click on that and get that free meditation, which is 10 minutes long. They can email me. My email is beyondholistichealing@gmail.com. And my Instagram is beyond_holistic_healing, which you can all find on my website. So that's, yeah, pretty much the place to go.
Yeah, awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And I'll drop those links in the description box below the video so everyone can find you readily
Thank you
and
so
easily.
much. Such a light. You are such a light. So thank you very much for being the light that you are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you everyone for joining us on another episode of Spiritually Speaking. As always, the Spiritually Speaking podcast group will also be linked in the description box below the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with all your friends and family who you feel would benefit from hearing this information. Thank you so much, and I love you all. We'll see you on the next one.